Okay, so there's a much bigger dose of realism in the system now. And remember I mentioned that part of the response to the crisis, the crash, and that planning is part of the system that enabled the bubble to happen. We've got to amend our ways, and in the year 2010 there was the amendment to the Planning Act which said you've got to have a core strategy, and a key part of that core strategy is the numbers that you now have to work according to, filtering all the way down, right down to the bottom of the system.
It's a realistic kick.
And it's a huge dose of realism. Now so we have this extreme over-zoning, which is a problem, because then somebody is zoned residential and they're sitting like, I don't know, 2 kilometers away from the services and all. I demand that I have lighting, street lighting, and the roads have got to be, proper roads, and like all this kind of stuff goes on. So the political system responds to the overzoning because votes are with those people. The political system responds to the overzoning by trying to make unrealistic, inefficient settlement patterns come about on the basis of this extreme overzoning that you've got. So, with us forcing the numbers through the system, there's, like in that case of that place that I told you about, which had over 1,000 hectares of residential zone land, which needed like 50 to 60, my numbers were 50 to 60. They came back and said, okay, we understand, and they cut it to like almost 300 hectares. And at the national level, we said, sorry, not good enough. We're not going to accept that from like 1,000, it was actually 1,200 and something to 300. I mean, you can imagine politically how difficult actually that is to get that to happen. At the national level, we said, sorry, that's not good enough. They came back with 100 and something. Sorry, that's not good enough. And we ended up with 80. From 1,200 to 80 hectares. And not only just the number of area, but they've got to be in the right position. They've got to be in the right place where services are. There's some kind of bus route, or there's schools, and the way ultimately we would force the system is that ultimate backstop is the Minister for Housing and Planning. The Minister for Housing and Planning has the authority to direct any planning authority to make their plan according to what she wants. And like one of my areas, one of my counties, I'm looking at this thing. No, I'm looking at this thing recording. One of my counties, the councillors adopted unrealistic, wrong kind of policies. The planning staff in the county advised them, this is wrong, it's not right, you shouldn't be doing this. The councillors said, yes, yes, yes. We carried on and they did their thing. It comes to me at the national level to evaluate this plan, and I look at it and straight away you can see this is wrong. And so there's a whole process that we go through, and about last week the minister signed a direction to order, sorry, he doesn't order, just changes it. Like it's now changed. That's your plan in regard to these matters. So the authority from the national government in one way ultimately relies on the fact that we have the power. Sorry, the minister's advised by us. The minister has the power just to direct changes all the way down to whatever level.
Just thinking back, because obviously just as quoted a little while ago, one can't help but listen to you to see where are the similarities and differences in our approach to sort of preparing plans. And it's been quite interesting. But it takes us back right to the beginning of the start of your kind of introduction. you're talking about a population just over 4 million, of a reasonably large area, but it is a relatively small population. And you live in the, literally at the edge of the central part of the developed world, linked into the European Union and so many different ways. So you've got the kind of the skills, the expertise, and the small population. So notwithstanding this kind of hierarchy working down, you actually don't have a huge game to play with, say, compared to our fairly large population spread over a very large area, and with a much more inegalitarian system to do the kind of thing. So we've actually got the worst of all worlds compared to your context of a smaller game, in relative terms a fair amount of kind of money, but what you have to direct and plan for is much more limited than, so our spread is that we have to spread a lot less money over a much larger area, over a much larger population, with nevertheless this kind of egalitarian game, and one might not use the word egalitarian in this country, but certainly people who have come to expect that it is their right to have a little bit of everything. So our game in many ways is actually much more difficult, and at the same time we've got an increasing centralization occurring in South Africa, with the provinces under threat up to a point in some of our legislation. But we don't have the strength in many ways at the local level. So yes, we have some similarities, but we also have some major dissimilarities.
Well, yes and no, because the main difference is that we cannot institutionally instruct the municipality that this is what you have to do. We don't have that kind of power. So if they do something, we pretty much have to live with it. Very, very, very.
Except that you don't need to give them the money.
To give that, no, you can't even do that.
Oh, really?
They've got themselves, yeah, and
they're fairly autonomous.
well, and I constantly get calls, people saying that you province, you actually charge municipalities. No, you have to charge for themselves, going to the court.
They just rezone something from shopping in Hillcrest, and that's it. The province can't do anything about it.
Or whatever you do, there's very little we can do, unless it's not impacting at the provincial scale or level. Then yes, then you can do provincial planning.
If it affects your provincial road, for example.
Yeah, or something like that. But
It's the provincially provided infrastructure, things like the roads and the water.
No,
it happens at a broad level, so you have a level of constraining them up to a point.
yeah, but for instance, let's say that you when you develop, there's not a lot you can do there because
Farmers market.
yeah, we agree on the significant economy in there. That's their right to decide what they want to do with that land, as long as it doesn't clog up in free, which is national anyway.
See, I mean, in Ireland, ultimately, if you wanted to rezone this property, and at a national level, we thought that was fairly seriously wrong. We don't get involved with the little fiddly-buggy things.
If you think it's a major problem.
If we think it's a significant issue, our minister would have the authority to say, sorry, that's what it is.
No, we can't do that. We can only do it we can do it in Drakensberg because it's an international heritage site. If it's going to really set a new trend, that's going to really impact on the Drakensberg as a whole, then you can.
But you'd have some say on the Digger port, because it's a major thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. But otherwise, what's got to say all about
an extra
You see, what in the Celtic Tiger era, I don't know how many times our minister actually issued a direction. Two, I don't know, because the feeling was then just what you described. It's the local prerogative to do pretty much whatever they want. So we actually had a structure which potentially had the powers with the minister sitting there, but it wasn't used for political reasons. You know, the local people did whatever they wanted. However, letting that kind of level of free-for-all happen, we now learn created problems of such a magnitude that in a sense it kind of swings the other way. So you almost need to run for a decade, or I don't know, whatever it is,
Let the worst emerge.
and let the worst emerge, and it becomes so obvious that it is so bad, the pendulum starts swinging the other way.
I think if we